What's up, YouTube fam? It's your girl Neia. I'm here today talking about fibroids. Forgive me if I look down because I've taken notes, just because there's a lot of scientific information that I want to make sure that I'm giving properly. And let me just say, I am not a doctor, and that doesn't mean much because I've had plenty of doctors in the past who were actually looking up online what my symptoms were while I was in the office. So sometimes I question the medical industry in general, but I'm not a doctor. I am just a person. This is all things that I've just gathered from my own research, from my own experiences, from talking to other women about their experiences, from reading other women's experiences. And I just felt like it was something I needed to share. One, because fibroids were something that I personally dealt with. And that was a very long, hard journey for me to navigate. And I felt like while I was in it, I didn't have the information and the resources and the tools to really help myself outside of the medical community, which is fine. Nothing against the medical community, but that wasn't, if I could just be transparent right now, I feel the medical community is so linked to the pharmaceutical industry that what's happening is we're not getting exactly what we need as patrons of the medical community, because pharmaceuticals are put in there to mask the issues, cover the pains, mask the pains, get you addicted, get you into a big cycle of, you rely on these things. And so it's hard for me to trust what the doctor is saying when they're pushing something down my throat, because I'm like, that's your bonus, and I don't even really feel like you're looking out for my health. I feel like you're looking out for my bonus. So that's not even what this is about. Let me just get into fibroids, shall I? Okay. Thank you for enduring that. Basically, fibroids are something that probably 70% of the women population, if you are biologically a woman, population has. And that is a huge portion of the population when you think of 70% of all women. Except for that, just because you have them doesn't mean you have symptoms, and doesn't mean you're symptomatic. And a lot of times when you aren't symptomatic, you don't know. And so therefore you just continue to live life the way you do, and it's normal and everything's fine. And you have them and they're fine. And why are they fine? They're fine because fibroids essentially are benign tissues. So they are cysts or materials that are benign, which means they're not cancerous, basically, and they just are in your body. And for women, they would be in your reproductive areas, because what I found in my research is a lot of the pollution, environmental, has an effect on human reproduction, which is scary, because on the one hand, you think about it, it's leading to sterilization, and it's leading to depopulation and population control, because a lot of the chemicals that are being put into our environment are causing human reproductive issues. And so if humans can't reproduce, you do the math, we're all going to eventually, go away, because there's so few of us who can have children anymore. And all of a sudden we're sterile as a society, and we don't have any more babies, and therefore we have no more existence. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was somebody's ulterior motive, but that's not really what this is about, but I'm just saying. So it's happening in your reproductive area for a woman. And it's something that women get. And most of the time for women, it happens in your uterus, or it happens within the cavity of your uterus, or within the uterus lining or on the outside of the uterus. So there's there's like different areas, but it's all encompassed within the uterus. And we all know that uterus is where the egg attaches and the baby grows. So this can cause issues for women who want to have children, because if you have a fibroid in the cavity that a child is supposed to be growing in, that can really cause some issues. Or it can cause tons of pain. It could put pressure on your bladder, it could put pressure on your rectum, and it could be really painful. Or it could be in a place where it's in your uterus lining, and so it's always shedding, and therefore it's always bleeding. And so what you find is that you're menstruating all the time, which is what my scenario was. Like, I literally bled for 3 years straight. And while I embraced it because I'm a woman and that's what we do, it got tired. Like, I honestly, I had enough was enough, because what happens is you never get a break, and you need a break. Trust me, when you're a woman and you have a menstrual cycle, you know that 1 week or 2 weeks, whatever it is like a moment where you're like, okay, I gotta hunker down. And then after that, you feel a little bit more freedom. Well, imagine if your life is 3 years nonstop of a menstruation. Like, you're never freed up. You're always bound. You're always in the bathroom. You always have to have a kit. You always have to be on something. And, it just dictates a lot of what you can and can't do. Like, going camping for me last year, it wasn't possible, because you're in the woods, and I know there's certain wood protocols, but like, I don't know. Like, when I'm in the woods and I'm bleeding, I don't even know where to begin and where it all ends. It's just too much. So I'm not doing that. And I love camping. Or for me, most recently, I took a trip to like a Caribbean country, and I was so preoccupied before I went on the trip of, what am I going to use? What am I going to do? Because I don't want to be caught in some Caribbean country and not have all the things that I'm used to. It was Puerto Rico, so it's America. So at the end of the day, they have everything that we have, but it's a little pricey, but whatever. But, you don't know what you're going to need, because yes, I want to be in water. I'm going to be at an island. So naturally, I'm going to be doing some water activity. And yes, I want to go to the beach and lay out and be in a bikini because I'm on vacation. And, I also want to feel comfortable and protected. So what am I going to do? Well, what I did was I literally bought every product on the market that is for menstruating women. I already have 2 Diva cups, or menstrual cups. Plus, I use tampons, I use pads, I use liners, and I use another product, which is something that I feel is totally underrated that we'll go into later in another video. So just to go on this trip, I stocked my shopping cart with every type of item that absorb blood for a woman, because I didn't know what I needed and I didn't know what to expect. So I wanted to be prepared for everything. And let me just say that that's not how you want to be when you're going on vacation. Like, yeah, you want to have your sunblock and you want to have your bathing suit and you want to have something to go out in. And that's kind of the extent of what you want to be thinking about. What you don't want to be thinking about is, well, if I get in the water and then I get out of the water and there's no bathroom, like, what's going to be happening to me? Like, that's just, who wants to think like that? I don't, but I did. So that being said, I've done extensive research on this. I know all about all the products and all about how they work, and I'm more than happy to share. And I'm actually going to do a video in the future on that. But this, we're just going to focus on the actual symptoms and the issues, which is fibroids. So let me get back to that. Okay. So what's happening? Like, why are women getting fibroids? Basically, I'm going to say what my doctor said. My first doctor. I went through a few. It's environmental. So when you're in a doctor's office and you have an issue and then they say something like it's environmental, that doesn't leave you a lot of control or power to do anything, because the environment is all around us. And how do we control our environment? So I felt like that was a little bit of a dismissive way to describe what was going on, and it made me not feel like I was in control of what's happening in my environment that's making this scenario happen for me. So anyway, it is environmental, and that's a huge thing, because it's environmental, you're being able to be exposed more or less depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it. So then I, in that diagnosis, had to figure out, well, what are the things in my environment that are not making it good, that are making it more likely and susceptible to happen? So when it comes to environment, we're talking about the outside, let's say. So outside chemicals get in our body and they mimic our natural hormones, because as you know, fibroid is a hormonal dysfunction. It's directly linked to your hormones. And so our environment is basically having a direct link and an effect to our hormones, which is all part of the endocrine system, the endocrine system. And if you understand body systems, you'll know that endocrine system has to do with hormone regulations and things like that, because those are linked to certain organs, and they're all about regulating hormones, and the regulation of hormones will determine whether you're certain ways and not certain ways, for lack of a better description. So these chemicals get into our body and they mimic our natural hormones, which means that they block or bind with our hormone receptors. And when they're binding and or blocking our natural or normal hormone receptors, what the end result of that is they are a detriment to our sensitive human organs. Not only humans, but in any species. It can be found in rats, it can be found in rabbits, and it can be found in whatever other animals unfortunately get used in laboratories. But let's just talk about humans right now. In our sensitive organs, like our uterus, our prostate, our testicles, our breasts, etc., because those are sensitive organs that are regulated by hormones. And so that's where this residue, for lack of a better term, tends to accumulate in these areas: testicles, prostate, breast, uterus, etc. And anything that is environmental and is something that is a disruptor of hormones is also related to these other issues, which are obesity, infertility, miscarriage, endometriosis, and diabetes. Those are all things that have to do with our endocrine systems that are being disrupted by these environmental disruptors. So what happens is, in the environment, there are these chemicals, and these chemicals are they're like fake estrogen. They're called xenoestrogens, but they have an estrogen-like effect. So what are these? I'll get into that in a second, but I'm just going to kind of break it down, like what happens. So you've got these xenoestrogens, but they have like an estrogen effect. And so they get into your system and your skin, through your skin and through your eating and through different ways that chemicals absorb into your body. And they cause estrogen dominance. And estrogen dominance is where fibroids and other things like prostate cancer come from. It's just too much estrogen. Well, when you have all these things in the environment that pretend to be estrogen, then you are naturally going to be estrogen dominant. These are man-made chemicals, and they can alter the functions of your endocrine system. and cause various health effects and interfere with the synthesis and metabolism. So binding or cellular responses of your natural estrogen. So it can affect the synthesis, it can affect the natural binding, it can affect the cellular response and the metabolism. So those are all areas that are being affected because, as you know, your body is a system and it all works. And so it breaks things down, it absorbs things, it takes things in, it gets rid of waste, it uses nutrients, it stores things. It's a whole system. So what ends up happening is you have this influx of estrogen that's now being put into all these different areas that it doesn't need to be put into, and it's like wreaking havoc on your system. And as a result, you get things like prostate cancer or fibroids, which is what I'm talking about right now. So these xenoestrogens are basically environmental hormones. And you can find these environmental hormones in the environment in the form of pesticides, plastic bottles. So BPA, when they have a BPA regulation or warning, heed that warning if you're a woman who's in her reproductive ages, because that BPA could have a side effect on your reproductive and also your offspring. So you know, these are things that you hear about that you're like, oh, I'm not really sure what that is. And I'm not sure why I'm not supposed to have it. I just know it's bad for you. Well, this is why it's bad, because it's getting into your hormone, your endocrine system. And that is causing reproductive issues within yourself and within your offspring. So you want to definitely, as much as you can, stay away from these things to stay clean and to stay healthy and to have healthy offspring. So BPA, Tupperware, nail polish, makeup, birth control, flame retardants, PVC, epoxy resin, PVC, red food coloring dye, and chlorine or the byproduct of chlorine. So what I just named are chemicals that are found in health products, makeup products, preservatives, because basically PVC is a preservative that's found like in lower price foods to keep a longer shelf life. And it's a environmental toxin and it's in your body. And the result of that is reproductive defects. You may not be exposed to epoxy resins. Birth control pills can do it. Nail polish is terrible. Mind you, I just want everybody to see that, yes, I do have nail polish. I'm actively getting my nails done. I have a girlfriend who has a nail salon, Black owned, so I'm definitely a supporter of her business. And I have nail polish. One, I've already had my kids. I'm not going to reproduce anymore in terms of that. And two, they're not on my actual hands. They're not on my actual nail beds. They're on top of nails. So I just have glue in my nail. But nail polish is one that I have an actual testimony of because, yes, we'll talk about that. So plastics are hugely environmentally detrimental. You want to eat hormone-free meat and dairy because they have hormones in dairy products that cause reproductive organs to humans. So if you can stay away from all of that, that would be great. Eat organic fruit and vegetables because, again, pesticides accumulate in your body and they end up causing estrogen. That's all part of this whole cycle. No pesticides, no fungicides. Try to, if you're a woman, use unbleached products like unbleached tampons and unbleached pads because the bleaching process also has the chemicals that are harmful to you. BHA. Don't eat any products with BHA, and those are found in processed foods. Eat organic meats, no parabens, no PBCs. And you see no parabens all the time on beauty products, and it's like you don't even understand why beauty products would have parabens because they're so bad for you, but they do. And parabens are basically plastics. So when a product that you use, and there are plenty of them out there. I don't have any in my home to give you an example, but a ton of them do. You're basically putting plastic on your skin, and the plastic is getting absorbed in your body because your skin is one of the biggest membranes on your body. And so it absorbs. And when it does, it absorbs into your body. So you're basically absorbing tons of plastic in your body, and nobody wants that. So basically, these xenoestrogens come to the environment by industrial agriculture and chemical companies. They get into our water, they get into our animals, which is into our food. And if you know anything about food chains, you know the person on the highest, or the thing that's on the highest part of the food chain is the one that's going to get the most of whatever is in the food chain. So if we're talking about pesticides, for example, it starts off with the apple. The apple gets the pesticide, and then the bug that eats the apple has the pesticide, and then the bird that eats the bug that eats the apple has the pesticide, and then the predator that eats the bird that eats the bug that eats the apple has, and it just accumulates up. So it's exponentially, gradually compounding. And so us being humans, and we're at the top of the food chain, we decide whether we're meat eaters or we're animal eaters, or we're veggie eaters, or we are omnivores, which means we eat both. But you can see how being at the top of the food chain really affects what it is we're putting in our body, because if we eat everything and everything is on some level ingesting this pesticides, by the time it gets to us, it's loaded with chemicals, and then our body has to regulate that. All of those things get regulated and filtered through your liver. But your liver is also working overtime, and it's also being affected by these chemicals as well. So in order for you to metabolize the excess hormones in your body, your liver has to be working really well and working overtime, because it's now metabolizing the hormones and everything else that it filters. And if there's too much, then you're overworking your liver. So you have to do things to keep your liver working properly too, so it can get these hormones metabolized, so they can come out of your body, so you're not estrogen dominant, which is causing the problem in the first place. You see how all of this compounds to a bunch of things, and you're like, whoa, why am I putting so much work on my reproductive system, and why am I putting so much work on my liver? All I'm trying to do is have a burger. Well, it's not that easy. You can't just have a burger and it's all good. You have a burger and all of a sudden you bleed for 3 weeks. Well, that's a little extreme, but you hear what I'm saying. So another part, if I could just go back to my don't use list, you don't want to use sunblocks and sunscreen, DDT, FDC or red number 3, ethylene or estradiol, and parabens. And also, if you're a Black woman or any woman of color with curly hair, you also want to be careful of the ingredients that are in hair straightening chemicals, which are like perms and such. Because those two are, again, getting absorbed by your skin directly into your body, and the chemicals that are within those are harmful to your reproductive states. And so for me, it was a perfect storm, because I grew up getting perms. My grandmother was a beautician, and my family is one part Creole, one part Alabama. And so the Creole part just happened to be the grandmother who's a beautician. And for her, my hair was too nappy, and she didn't want to, I wasn't, light skin, long hair enough for her. And so she was just always processing a perm in my hair. And I don't blame her, because at the end of the day, that's what she knew what she was doing. That's what she did for a living. So she didn't know that it was going to have this really negative effect on me. And I, sitting in her perm chair, didn't know it was going to have it either. I just wanted to feel like I'm as Creole as everybody else. And that was what the perm did for me at that moment. I have definitely grown from there, and I love my natural nappy hair. Let me tell you, I wish it was a little nappier because it's beautiful. Like, I am this all day, every day. And, you know, if you are my Creole relative and you don't have this, I'm not trying to hate, but this here is what's up. This here is what's up. I'm just saying, like, this is really works for me. You might be happy with your waves and your curls, but girl, I'm feeling this on myself. And it took me a minute to get to that level, but here I am. I really like what I'm doing with myself. Okay? I like myself. So those are different areas that you really need to be sensitive about and understanding. So just with me, with my situation, you know, I was eating, for example, I went on a diet of fish. So I was like a pescatarian. So most of my staple fish that I ate, which I ate maybe seafood twice a week, was tilapia, because tilapia is a fish that's very not fishy, and it kind of works in a bunch of different recipes and scenarios. But what I failed to realize is that tilapia is loaded with pesticides, because there ain't no wild tilapia in the world. Any and all tilapia that you're going to eat is going to be farmed, unless you're in the far corners of the globe. And then maybe there'll be a wild tilapia for you out there. But guarantee, when that tilapia is wild and you're at that place, it ain't happening at the same time. So a great deal, if not all, of your tilapia is farm raised. And what happens in a farm raised scenario is there's a lot of fish in a small containment that are getting fed lots of pesticides to stay healthy and to grow in this small environment. Think of the chickens in the chicken coop in a fish scenario, and that's what you have. So I didn't know that eating tilapia was not good for me, but I ate it for like 2 years, and then I found out, oh wow, this is not making my situation better. So I personally had a perfect storm of things that really propelled me into this place. I had perms in my hair. I ate lots of tilapia. I work in the fashion industry, and then nail art became a whole big thing. And so when I was pregnant with my son, I did a bunch of nail art, which was terrible because the phthalates that are in nail polish absorb into your skin and get into your body, cause reproductive issues. And actually, through me, my son had a reproductive issue. So that's never a good thing, which I'm going to talk about that in another video. But, you know, those are the realities of being, you know, in a society that has industrial agriculture and chemicals. You have susceptibility to the things that are out there that can harm you. And those things can harm you, and they can also harm your offspring. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants their kid born with a reproductive problem. No one wants their kid born deformed, retarded, or anything like that. But those are the things that happen, and they are more likely to happen in our environment now than they were in the most natural environments that we're in. So we just have to be careful. And part of being careful is being educated. So if anything, I'm not here to, you know, put fear on you or to make you feel bad as a person for what it is you're doing. I don't want you to feel bad for the things you don't know. I'm just here to spread the knowledge and to let you know, and to really just share my story, because it could be different for you, but this is just what happened to me, and this is what I've learned, and this is what I've researched. And if I can, you know, help you, then that's what I'm willing to do. And so that's what this video is all about. So like my page, subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Please, I'm open to whatever your comments are. So if you have comments, please feel free to, you know, communicate with me. I'll get back to you. And thank you so much, audience, for listening. It's your girl Neia, and I'll see ya.